us kissing
Oh
was
yeah.
the most horrifying thing either of
Oh.
us have
Yeah.
ever had to go through.
One of my favourite moments on set ever was the moment when all the floating candles started burning through the ropes that tied them to the ceiling and just started falling around the Great Hall.
For over 2 decades, the Harry Potter movies and books have mesmerized fans, inducing countless rewatches, arguments, and speculations. Loyal enthusiasts have pored over each frame and page, believing they had discovered all of the secret meanings and covert details. But a few realities remained hidden, subtle moments and revelations that only surfaced later in earnest cast interviews, director commentary, or even elucidations from J.K. Rowling herself. These discoveries weren't the big Easter eggs or plot reveals the fans proudly identified, but instead the hidden masterstrokes, behind-the-scenes tales, and creative choices that remapped how the wizarding world is interpreted. Now, follow us as we show you a few things that casts have revealed that even the biggest fans couldn't figure out even after all of these years, proving that the magic still has secrets. Harry Potter fever and how the boy who lived conquered the world. When Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone initially hit bookstore shelves in the United Kingdom in June 1997, it resembled any other children's fantasy book. The first print run was small, a mere 500 hardback copies, most of which ended up directly in libraries. But within months, this humble book about a boy orphan who found out he was a wizard started spreading by word of mouth, which created a ripple effect that became a tidal wave within a short time. What started out as a children's book soon became a cultural phenomenon unlike anything that contemporary publishing had witnessed. The success of Harry Potter was not overnight fame, but a phenomenon that constructed its image brick by brick, attracting readers young and old across all demographics. The series at the turn of the century had transcended being a series of books. It was a movement, an identity, and for many children, their first experience with a book that they would never forget. The frenzy it created was so immense and overwhelming that it would define a generation and redefine the face of popular culture. Harry Potter was a work of art for its age, managing to accomplish something many didn't even imagine, and that's how at the time, publishing for children never made headlines abroad. The popular shows such as Goosebumps had indeed gained broad audiences, but these were always disapproved of as light entertainment and not cultural touchstones. Fantasy was particularly viewed as a niche, with Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings treated as a classic, but virtually limited to literary and genre communities. Amidst all of this, J.K. Rowling's tale appeared modest, given that it had been rejected by several publishers before being discovered by Bloomsbury. Right from the start, there was something unusual about Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Teachers observed that so-called difficult readers were thriving on it. Librarians watched waiting lists increase day by day. Parents, anticipating to indulge their children by reading aloud, became addicted to the exploits of Harry, Hermione, and Ron. The secret of the book lay in its accessibility. It combined the fantasy of a fairy tale with the tension of a mystery novel, with the action set against the background of a detailed but non-overwhelming world of magic. For kids, the prospect of getting a letter to Hogwarts was irresistible, and for adults, the humor and clever plotting made it much more interesting than most books for children. Before long, families weren't merely reading Harry Potter, they were living it, talking it, and passing it around dinner plates. By the publication of the second book, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, the hype was irrefutable. Sales exploded, translations into numerous languages commenced, and J.K. accrued a series of awards. The third novel, Prisoner of Azkaban, further solidified the series' status as not only a publishing phenomenon, but as a cultural phenomenon in the works. Kids started dressing up as wizards for Halloween, holding in their hands makeshift wands made of twigs. School districts set up reading clubs dedicated to the books, and friendships were forged through armchair speculation about what would next occur in the narrative. In the early days of the internet, message boards and fan sites initially arose at dawn of the internet age, replete with theories, artwork, and prophecies. And then came the release of Goblet of Fire in 2000. By then, Harry Potter wasn't merely successful, it was overpowering the international scene. The book's first printing was a record-breaking number of more than 5 million copies in America alone. To make it fair, publishers synchronized international publishing dates so that children in London, New York, Sydney, and Tokyo could open the book simultaneously. Mania had formally struck. The most obvious indication of just how profoundly Harry Potter mania existed emerged with the midnight book releases. Bookstores worldwide had elaborate parties, with fans queuing hours ahead of time to be among the first to get their hands on the new installment, in some cases dressed in full costume. It felt more like a rock concert than a book launch. Children brandished wands, parents donned wizard hats, and towns converted local bookshops into miniature Hogwarts for an evening. Pottermania wasn't just reserved for children. Parents, teachers, and even grandparents lined up. Some read the books with their children, while others confessed to reading chapters ahead when the children slept. In a world where reading was traditionally a singular occupation, Harry Potter turned it into a communal one, making book launches communal cultural events. Such cross-generational appeal meant that the books were able to be shared by families. Parents who had grown up on Roald Dahl and Tolkien now found themselves sharing with their children Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Book clubs that were previously meeting to discuss literary fiction were now devoting sessions to Harry Potter. The newspapers featured editorials examining the symbolism of the series and academics debating its philosophical and moral underpinning. You knew the names of the Hogwarts houses, could identify Harry's lightning bolt scar, and had at least heard of Quidditch back then, regardless of whether you actually read the books. The book's success was certain, and it was time to assign recognizable faces to the characters beyond the description of a page. The wizardry of Hogwarts on the big screen came alive as Warner Brothers acquired the movie rights of the book. The world exploded on another level altogether. For most fans, news of a film adaptation came as a thrilling as well as frightening moment. On the one hand, it promised to realize the magic of Hogwarts on screen in a way they had only dreamed while reading it. On the other hand, the stakes were high. Millions of children and adults worldwide already had profoundly personal images of Harry, Hermione, and Ron in their minds, and everyone wondered anxiously whether Hollywood could do them justice. Few things in the film adaptation were as highly scrutinized as the casting. Who would play Harry Potter? Which kid could possibly have the burden of a character who had become a cultural phenomenon before anyone had ever seen him on film? The search was exhaustive and arduous. Casting agents looked high and low in schools throughout the UK, eager to find actors who looked the part but could also capture the essence of JK's characters. Thousands of kids auditioned, but there wasn't quite the right one for the lightning-scarred hero until a young Daniel Radcliffe was spotted by director Chris Columbus. Daniel's casting set off huge media interest. The British media was critical of him. Fans argued over whether he resembled Harry enough, and parents questioned whether a child so young was capable of withstanding the pressure. But as soon as his round spectacles and sincere face graced promotional pictures, many of the doubters were silenced. For millions of kids, he was their Harry, the flesh and blood incarnation of a character they had loved on the page. Casting Hermione Granger and Ron Weasley was equally dramatic. Emma Watson, blessed with her articulate charm, and Rupert Grint, blessed with his natural comedic timing, won the hearts of fans at once. The three together developed a chemistry that powered the movies and infused life into them. Other essential casting, from Richard Harris as wise Dumbledore to Alan Rickman's unforgettable performance as Severus Snape, added to the appeal of the adaptation over and above anyone's hopes. The cast wasn't merely good, it was legendary. When Warner Brothers put Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone out in 2001, the mania around the books went into high gear. Kids who had grown up on J.K.'s words now had them brought to life on a grand scale. Hogwarts' flying turrets, the staircases that moved, and a magical feast in the Great Hall were all alive and breathing. The wizarding world was no longer limited to their imagination. It was something you could look at, listen to, and believe. The release of the film was not just a box office opening. It was handled as a world holiday. Red carpet galas in New York and London attracted huge crowds, and advance ticket sales were record-breaking. Families who had been waiting in line to get books at midnight now waited in line to get movie tickets, sometimes in robes and with wands. The movie itself was a box office monster and grossed close to $1 billion worldwide. Most importantly, it spread the fan base well beyond readers. Kids who hadn't read the books or weren't even readers in the first place were soon caught up in the frenzy after watching the film. The Harry Potter story was no longer limited to bedrooms and libraries. It had moved into being a cultural phenomenon. The opening of each new film became a big media spectacle, feeding the buzz that had started with the books. With Chamber of Secrets opening in 2002, fans poured in to watch the teen cast come into their own. By Prisoner of Azkaban 2 years later, director Alfonso Cuarón brought a darker, moodier atmosphere, indicating that the franchise would grow up along with its fan base. This development kept viewers engaged, enabling the show to maintain the same children's generation who had read the books in the late 90s, while introducing new viewers as well. Each movie was more than entertainment. It was an international dialogue. Tabloids analyzed behind-the-scenes rumors. Fans analyzed trailers frame by frame for hints. And the internet forums hummed with anticipation on how strictly the next installment would stick to the books. The movies weren't supplanting the books. They were complementing them, providing fans with new facets to analyze and discuss. Merchandise linked to the movies also grew at an unprecedented rate. Abruptly, kids were able to have movie-accurate wands, house robes, and action figures based on the actors whom they were watching on the big screen. The convergence of the books, movies, and merchandise meant that Pottermania was no longer seasonal, bound only by book release dates. Rather, it was always present, refreshed each time a new movie poster went up or a teaser trailer was released.